Hi, and welcome to the Skincarma Pod. I'm Carmine, the creator and voice of the Skincarma Blog. With more than 25 years in beauty as a brand builder, copywriter, and skincare junkie, I'm putting my product wisdom and expertise to work demystifying skincare. Today, on the Skincarma Pod, episode 14, I'm demystifying product application. I'm going to be sharing the best order for applying your skincare products and how to create good skincare habits that help you optimize your routine. So, to start, I get asked some sort of variation of this question all the time. Where does this product fit into my routine? Most often, it's a serum. I think the emergence of serums in the last 10, 15 years has really complicated skincare routines. Originally, if you think about the 70s and even the 80s, when I was a cosmetic department manager in the 90s, and we had that Clinique routine. It's a 3-step routine, was that acid toner, the alcohol exfoliating toner. Is that what it was called? That's what it should be called. A cleanser, that toner, and then a moisturizer. And then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, it just kind of creeped in over the last decade or so, all of these additional serums that you want to add to your routine to optimize your skin health. And I do the same. I mean, I use serums as well. If you think about the iconic vitamin C serum from SkinCeuticals that was introduced 20 years ago. I mean, it's kind of crazy that it's already been 20 years. And that formula, by the way, has not changed in 20 years. So people started incorporating things like that into their skincare routines. And now all of a sudden, skincare routines have gotten really complicated. And, there's also this idea that, people want to try new skincare products. Brands are constantly introducing new, serums, vitamin C serums, anti-aging serums, growth factor serums, or like the hot thing for 2025, peptide serums. I talked about that in the last podcast. And so how do you incorporate all of these products into your routine? Do you use vitamin C before retinol? Do you use vitamin C and retinol together at all? The answer is no. Do you use retinol before peptides? Do you use peptides before retinol? When do you apply a hyaluronic acid serum? My answer is don't. Are there products that you shouldn't be mixing? Are there ingredients that don't go well together? And then there's the idea of, what you want your routine to do. So your AM routine is really focused on protection with antioxidants and sunscreen, and your PM routine should be focused on correction and repairing damage. And replenishment. So there are some products that are better in the AM and some products that are better in the PM. And for me, it's kind of a smart way to avoid conflicts. There are ingredients, copper peptides and vitamin C should never be applied anywhere near each other. And I don't really have that problem because I only apply vitamin C in the morning and I apply peptides in the evening. So I don't have to worry about those kind of conflicts. But this is something that I've thought about over the years, and I have kind of developed over the years, and it's come together for me as what I refer to as good skincare habits. If you have really good skincare habits, that's not just about washing your face before bed and wearing a sunscreen religiously every morning. It's about the order of applying products and when you should be using particular products. Are they AM? Are they PM? Are they just once or twice a week, like a really powerful, a glycolic acid, dark spot treatment or brightening serum? There are simple rules really to optimize your skin health. Some rules are very obvious and easy to follow, and I'll go into those in just a second. And some are more complex, like retinol can be really complicated. Of course, as a general rule, you want to apply retinol at night. You can use retinol in the morning as long as you're wearing a sunscreen, and I wouldn't recommend using a really, really strong retinol in the morning. You want to use something very, very weak, essentially, either a beginner retinol or a serum that has very low concentrations of retinoids in it. There's a Paula's Choice, I think it's called triple active serum, that has a nice, retinol blend in it, and it's relatively low concentration and relatively, I don't want to say weak, but it kind of is. It's weak. And it's really a terrific retinoid for using in the morning. So probably the most important rule to follow when you're applying skincare products, the least complicated, I would say, bare bones, is to apply products thinnest to thickest, water based before oil based. So you always want to apply, your thinnest products, your thinnest serums, your toners, everything at the very beginning of your routine. And then anything that's oil based, a heavier lotion, like a heavier or cream-based vitamin C serum, retinol, moisturizers, of course, at the very last. It's really all about absorption and enhancing the penetration of some ingredients before others. And so when you optimize that, you get the most out of your skincare routine. So when we talk about ingredient penetration, I talked about this actually in the last podcast in episode 13 about peptides. I introduced what's called the 500 Dalton rule. So molecular weight is measured in Daltons, and a 500 Dalton molecular weight is the limit whereby an ingredient will penetrate the skin barrier, right? So every ingredient, every molecule that you look at can be rated with a number of Daltons that measure its molecular weight. And it was several years ago, well before the pandemic, that I was introduced to this really cool scientist. I think he was based in Michigan, and he was really all about formulating products that would actually penetrate the skin barrier. And I remember this one chart he sent me, and it was like the molecular weights of specific ingredients. And it wasn't just skincare ingredients, if I remember correctly. Like there was like a coffee molecule or something. And, it was like, this is the skin barrier. These are the ingredients that get through the skin barrier. The skin barrier, as you probably know, is, the primary role of the skin barrier is to prevent things from getting past and entering the body and preventing, water from going out of the body and keeping your skin hydrated. So substances with a molecular weight exceeding more than 500 Daltons cannot penetrate human skin intact, that is whole. Examples of ingredients that you're quite familiar with that penetrate really well, and it's the reason why they're so effective. Retinol, for one, has a molecular weight of 286 Daltons. It gets past the skin barrier and goes deep, deep into the skin. Vitamin C is 176 Daltons. Niacinamide, 122 Daltons. Like, you need to be using a niacinamide serum in your routine, and preferably AM and PM, certainly in the AM. And I'm going to get more into that in a bit. Many replenishing plant oils. Squalane has a molecular weight of 410 Daltons. Coconut oil, which tends to be comedogenic, so it's not good, if you have oily skin. Coconut oil penetrates at 250 to 300 Daltons. But not all oily or lipidic fat-like substances do penetrate the skin barrier well. Petrolatum, 1,300 to 2,500 Daltons. Dimethicone, which is not an oil, but it's kind of oil adjacent, shall we say? It has a molecular weight, depending on the dimethicone molecule, of between 1,000 and 100,000 Daltons, and that's why dimethicone is feels really good on the skin. And skincare marketers particularly love to put dimethicone into a moisturizer because it gives it that really, really silky feeling that consumers love. It's terrific. It feels great on the skin, and that's why you love it. It doesn't penetrate. So it doesn't penetrate, and then all you're feeling is your skin. You're actually feeling the dimethicone on your skin, so your skin feels pillowy soft. And then also ceramides. Ceramides are right around the 500 rule limit at about 600 or, slightly above that. So they penetrate, but, not necessarily very far. But there's this really interesting thing about ceramides, and it's that their lipophilic structure aids in the penetration of the molecule into the skin. Your skin loves oils. The upper layers of your skin are composed of oils. So oil attracts oil. It repels water and attracts oil. It repels water. I mean, that's really the reason why you can't get all your hydration in a day in your morning shower. Ingredients that, besides water, that don't penetrate: hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid has a molecular weight of between 10,000 and 1 million Daltons. So depending on the particular hyaluronic acid molecule, it's not going anywhere. And this is why, to me, hyaluronic acid is a bit of a joke. Even fragmented or low molecular weight hyaluronic acid has a Dalton of 50,000, sometimes less, depending. And so I talked about this in the last podcast. Like, hyaluronic acid really, really does sit at the very surface layer of your skin. And if it's dry outside, hyaluronic acid as a humectant is not going to pull moisture from the air because the air is dry. It's going to pull moisture from lower in your skin, like deeper in your skin, to the surface. And it gives you that plump feeling, but that plump feeling is temporary because now that the water is at the surface, it gets sucked out into the air because the air wants the water that's in your face because it's dry. So, this is 2025. There are much better ways to hydrate your skin. And if you're looking at humectants, there's other ways to go besides hyaluronic acid. And the next ingredient that doesn't penetrate your skin is native collagen. Molecular weight of 300,000 Daltons. Like, it's as bad as hyaluronic acid. Even hydrolyzed collagen, which is fragmented collagen, is between 3,000 and 6,000 Daltons. It's not going anywhere. That's why it's always been so silly to put collagen in a skincare product and then apply it to your face and somehow think that by applying collagen, it's going to get down to where your collagen reserves are, which are deep in the dermis. I think 70 or 80% of your skin's collagen is found in your dermis. Like, even if the collagen could penetrate the skin barrier, how is it going to get down into the dermis to replenish low collagen levels? You need to stimulate collagen production. And guess how you do that? Retinol and vitamin C. Yep. So let's jump into the best order of applying skincare products. I mean, that's really why we're here today. Sorry I went into this deep, chemistry lesson, but whatever. I loved high school chemistry, and here I am talking about chemistry. My whole routine, to be quite honest with you, is based on optimizing penetration of skincare actives. I mean, that's how you get the most out of your skincare products and how you really enhance your skin health. So let's break it down. Obviously, you want to start with the basics. You want to bookend your routine. In the morning, you start with a cleanser and you end with sunscreen, right? And in the evening, you start with a cleanser and you end with a moisturizer. So, as I alluded to earlier, my morning routine is all about protecting my skin from environmental damage with sunscreen and antioxidants. So I start with a cleanser. Usually, the very first cleanser I use when I get out of bed, like right after I have fed Musaeus and I have a good hot cup of coffee in hand, I go to the bathroom and I use a cleansing water. There's a really terrific cleansing water, a micellar water from Untoxicated that I love. That's the first cleanser I use for the day. And then I, do some yoga stretches. And then I go down to the gym or I ride 15, 16 miles across Brooklyn when it's warm enough out. And I come home, come back upstairs, and I am now sweating, right? And, if I've been outside in New York City streets, I've got all kinds of exhaust on my face, bus exhaust, all of it. And so I need to do a deeper cleanse. So I'll use a cleansing gel, usually, sometimes a cleansing foam. Most of the time it's a cleansing gel in the shower. I get out of the shower and I spritz my face with a toning mist. I really, really encourage you to use some sort of toning mist, a humectant mist. I love the Naiad. Is that how you pronounce it? Naiad? I don't know. The Naiad superoxide dismutase saccharide mist. It's really, really terrific. And I spray my face, and then I immediately jump into applying, my serum. So I jump straight into my serum step. I want my face to be somewhat damp. And so if you get out of the shower and then you apply a mist over your face, you're kind of locking some of that water in, the hydration in, and that water in your skin is going to pull the toner deeper into your skin, like a wet sponge absorbs water on the surface of, on your kitchen counter easier and quicker than a dry sponge does. Water attracts water, oil attracts oil. And the converse, of course, they repel each other. And so I jump straight into my serum step. The very first serum I apply is usually a niacinamide serum. My Paula's Choice niacinamide serum, the 10% booster, is really my favorite. And I consider this to be one of the best skincare products on earth. Speaking of niacinamide, so I said earlier that it's got 122 Daltons as a molecular weight. It penetrates very deeply. I caught a podcast episode of Radiance Revealed, the Radiance Revealed podcast with Dr. Jen Haley. She hosted me actually on her podcast a couple of weeks ago. It was really sensational. And I really am hooked on this podcast. And she had an episode recently called Sunshine RX or Sunshine Prescription. And she had another dermatologist, I believe the woman was a dermatologist, maybe a scientist, on with her. And this woman talked about the benefits of niacinamide in ways that I had never heard before. And it was all about how niacinamide really helps to repair environmental damage, unlike any other antioxidant, and particularly sun damage. And I was like, what? And it reminded me back to my days when I worked on Strivectin. Strivectin was a client for many years, and I had the great privilege of meeting the two founding scientists that developed the brand's proprietary niacin molecule. I think it's called Nia 114. Yeah. And they talked a lot whenever we met. They talked a lot about how that molecule was so effective because it was able to penetrate really, really, really deep into the skin. That was nothing we could ever talk about on packaging and marketing. We could never talk about that with consumers. But, they had all of this data and, these charts, and it was just so amazing to me. And so niacinamide, like when I get to the pearly gates, I need to ask St. Peter, is it true that sunscreen and niacinamide are what kept my skin youthful all those years? That's my hunch. My hunch is the answer is going to be yes, my child. It was niacinamide and sunscreen. You nailed it early on in life. So you need to be incorporating a niacinamide serum into your skincare routine. Absolutely in the AM. I do it twice a day. The Paula's Choice 10% niacinamide booster is an excellent option. If you don't want to spend $44 or $45, whatever it is, the Ordinary's niacinamide 10% plus zinc 1% is a really, solid niacinamide serum. But get a niacinamide serum into your morning routine. Your morning routine should be very heavy in antioxidants. All your antioxidant serums should be used in the morning. Your antioxidants are your environmental defense. You're not like out in the world being attacked by the environment when you're in bed at night. They're not restorative. They help to defend your skin against environmental damage. So niacinamide, vitamin C, you want to be applying in your AM routine. So immediately after my niacinamide serum, I usually apply a vitamin C serum of one kind or another. There are two kinds of vitamin C serums. There are light and watery vitamin C serums like the SkinCeuticals CE Ferulic, and there are thicker, creamier vitamin C serums like the Paula's Choice 25% vitamin C and glutathione clinical serum. It's got a light lotiony texture. And so, again, you just want to look at the serums that you are using and, judge for yourself where, what should come before them and what should come after them. So if you're using a lotiony vitamin C serum, you want to apply it kind of later in your serum step routine. But definitely in your serum step routine. If it's lighter, if you're using like the CE Ferulic from SkinCeuticals or a knockoff or something similar to it, then apply it, before other serums. And then the last serum that I apply in the morning is a humectant serum. So if you're using a hyaluronic acid serum and you've got my breaking news that it's not penetrating very far, of course it should be the last serum you apply in your routine. I don't use hyaluronic acid. It's 2025, like I said. We can get all modern and stuff. And I am obsessed with Ectoin Hydra Barrier Serum. Ectoin is a kind of a breakthrough new humectant that came out into the consumer marketplace early last year. Ectoin, unlike hyaluronic acid, has a molecular weight of 142 Daltons, right? That's way below the 500 Dalton rule. So Ectoin is going to penetrate your skin. The Inky Lists Ectoin serum it looks milky, but it's really not. It's more like a light pulpy serum. It's not sticky. It's not very thick. And so I usually apply that because if I'm using the Paula's Choice vitamin C, the 25% vitamin C, I am going to apply my Ectoin serum before that vitamin C. If, for example, I'm using the Paula's Choice 15% booster, that has that same watery texture, right? That really light watery texture that's similar to the SkinCeuticals CE Ferulic. I'll apply that before the Ectoin because that's a little bit thicker. It's really that simple. Thinnest to thickest and water-based before oil-based. And then speaking of oil, you get to your moisturizer step. So your moisturizer is obviously the most occlusive product in your routine. Occlusive meaning that it kind of blocks, it occludes, prevents water from getting out. And that's the whole point of a moisturizer. Moisturizers moisturize. They keep moisture in your skin. They prevent transepidermal water loss or moisture loss through the skin barrier. And second, they seal everything in. They seal all of those serums in. So you want to make sure that you apply all of your serums first, and then you get to your moisturizer, and you put that on, and it prevents any of the serums that you've applied from going the other way, from being drawn out through the skin barrier, evaporated. Right? That's called evaporation, I guess. So obviously, depending on your skin type, this is where skin type matters. You need to tailor a moisturizer for your skin. So if you have very dry skin, I recommend the classic, the OG lipid replenishing moisturizer, the Skin Fix Triple Lipid Peptide Cream. It is very rich, very creamy, very replenishing. And this is my favorite moisturizer in the winter. The Inky List Bioactive Ceramide Repairing and Plumping Moisturizer is essentially just as thick. And I know if you're listening to the podcast, you can't actually see me applying products. So I'll just talk you through it. It's very, very, very thick. It goes on thick. It spreads thickly. It's not going to absorb well into the back of my hand now that I've applied 10 things. But it's really, really replenishing, filled with lipids. Ceramides are lipids. And it's really great for preventing moisture loss in the winter and replenishing lipids in your skin. I really love it. And if you're listening to the podcast, what you don't know is that I didn't put my fingers in the jar. I used that little lid that's there. I don't have a spatula with me. I have a pack of wooden spatulas in the bathroom. I never, ever, ever put my fingers in a jar of moisturizer. Don't do it. You're injecting, bacteria from your fingers. I have a cat. I'm touching my cat all the time. And so you're getting bacteria inside the moisturizer, and it's going to begin to break down some of the more important actives. If you've got antioxidants in a moisturizer and it's in a jar, those antioxidants are, as good as dead in a month. They begin to degrade like driving a new car off the lot. They begin to degrade, and because antioxidants don't like to be exposed to air. So It's just not a good idea to put your fingers in there. If you're using a moisturizer in a jar, use it up quickly. I will not spend a penny on a moisturizer for its antioxidant benefits if it's in a jar. Just don't do it. It makes no sense. You don't need your moisturizer to do anything but moisturize, replenish your lost lipids. That's it. Don't spend extra money on anything crazy anti-aging. You've got your retinol for that. If you're using retinol, if you're not, you should be. You've got your antioxidants for that. Your moisturizer should just be focused on lipid replenishment, none of the other bells and whistles. So that's for very dry. For normal and dry skin, I love the Paula's Choice Resist Barrier Repair Advanced Moisturizer. It's kind of got a medium weight, shall we say, texture to it. Really replenishing, really applies nicely, melts into the skin. If you have oily skin, there's two moisturizers that I love. The Ordinary's Natural Moisturizing Factors plus Beta Glucan. It's not even a gel cream, it's just a gel. It is so lightweight, it's oil-free, and Beta Glucan is one of those humectants that helps to it helps to bind to water molecules in your skin and keep your skin hydrated. This product it's just terrific. Again, if you have oily skin, this is the way to go. The Skin Fix Barrier Restoring Gel Cream, while not oil-free, it's virtually oil-free. Really terrific, and it's free of, I forget how it's phrased. It's free of actives that are known to cause acne, or the proliferation of acne causing bacteria on your skin. And so it's just really terrific. Both of those moisturizers, if you have oily skin, that's the way to go. You need to use a moisturizer, and both of those are really top notch. Of course, as always, I'll drop links to all of these products into the show notes. You can also go to my website at skincarma.com and use the drop down menu. You'll see in the drop down menu best moisturizers or best face creams for oily skin, best face creams for dry skin, best sunscreens, all of that. And then so finally in the morning, you've applied your moisturizer, and then the last thing you need to do is apply sunscreen. So I get this quite often. Do you apply sunscreen before moisturizer, or you apply moisturizer before sunscreen? You apply sunscreen last. Think about it this way. Sunscreen should see the sun. There should be nothing between your sunscreen and the sun. It's the last thing, your outer shield, the last product you apply in the morning. I'm not going to go into, we would be here another half hour if I went into all of my favorite sunscreens for face and my favorite sunscreens for the eye area. Those can all be found on the blog in the drop-down menu, best sunscreens for face and best sunscreens for eyes. And that brings me to my PM routine. Your PM routine is all about correction and repair. The AM routine is about prevention, and PM routine is about correction and repair. Of course, just like in the morning, you want to start with a cleanser, but your cleanser should be different at night. You need your cleanser to do kind of heavier lifting than your cleanser does in the morning. At night, in the evening, my skincare routine is usually around 7:30. Or even earlier. If I get home at 4 or 5 o'clock and I'm not going back out in sunlight at all, I'll wash my face then, because I want the sunscreen off my face. I want the day off my face. So in the evening, you want to use a cleansing oil, particularly. You can use a cleansing oil by itself, or use a cleansing oil as the first step in a double cleanse. Cleansing oil removes sunscreen, makeup, and excess sebum. If you're double cleansing, follow the cleansing oil with a water-based cleanser. So that's the order in a double cleanse. Oil-based, or a cleansing oil first, and then a water-based cleanser. The water-based cleanser removes sweat, dirt, and any remaining residue from your first cleanse. And that's it. And then follow up with a toner again. I like to moisten my skin, and I go right into my serum step. Peptides, growth factors, and retinol. that is what my PM routine is composed of. Whereas my AM routine was composed of vitamin C, niacinamide, and a humectant like Ectoin. So in the evening, peptoids in your PM routine. Again, I separate them. There is evidence that some peptides can, don't play well with vitamin C. There's evidence that retinol and vitamin C don't necessarily go together. So peptides, retinol, and whatever else are in the PM routine. Whatever else is going to help repair your skin. If you're using an exfoliating treatment with glycolic acid, you want to do that in the PM as well. You don't want to put glycolic acid on in the morning when, it sensitizes your skin and you're out in the sun. It's just not a good idea. So a peptide collagen booster is really good. I love the Paula's Choice Pro Collagen Multi-Peptide Booster. It's a relatively milky, pulpy serum. And so that goes on first. I also like the Ordinary's Multi-Peptide plus HA serum in the evening. Really great, affordable option. It's as I recall, it's got the matrixyl peptide complex in the serum. Don't quote me. The review is on my blog under the best products for the Ordinary in the drop-down menu. Then growth factors. If you're using a growth factor serum or a really like a heavy duty anti-aging serum, use that at night. The interesting thing about growth factors is they really don't penetrate the skin barrier very well either. And that's kind of the key challenge with applying growth factors like EGF, epidermal growth factors. But the thing is that EGF can bind or does bind to receptors on the surface of skin cells. So it doesn't necessarily need to penetrate deeply because it's triggering, signaling all kinds of things. And that's why growth factors are such a complex and intriguing new skincare active. They don't need to go very deeply to do what they need to do. Growth factor serums, most of them are very light water-based serums. The Ordinary just came out with a 15% growth factor serum, and it's got a texture that's essentially as light as a toner, really as light as my favorite Paula's Choice 10% niacinamide booster. So, depending on your peptide serum, you might want to apply a growth factor serum sooner. Again, as a general rule, just apply that general rule to your own skincare routine. Water-based before oil-based and thinnest to thickest. So this particular growth factor serum from the Ordinary really should come first because it's really, really lightweight. Then retinol. That's the last serum product. And if it's not a serum, if it's a retinol lotion or a cream, certainly comes last. And very often you're using a retinol or a moisturizer with retinol, then that's your moisturizer. But if you're using a retinol that's a heavy lotion or cream, this comes as the very last step in your serum routine. And maybe the retinol really isn't in your serum routine. The retinol is its own routine. Think of it that way. And most importantly, retinol needs to be applied on dry skin. So you really need to wrap up your serum routine and go do something. Go do something else. Go get your pajamas out. Do that. Or, if you haven't fed the cat yet or, whatever, I sometimes just go back and sit back on the couch and keep watching my show that I paused to go do my skincare routine. And then a half hour, 45 minutes later, my skin is dry and I come back and I apply my retinol. Like, why not do that? It makes complete sense. The thing is with retinol, it can be quite complicated. There are ingredients that you don't want to mix with retinol. And there's ways to get around that. You can either use particular products or ingredients that don't go well with retinol on alternate nights, on the nights you're not using retinol. You can separate the routines, use those ingredients in the morning and the retinol at night, or wait 30, 45 minutes. Again, go back to your Netflix and hit play, and then come back and apply your retinol If you're using benzoyl peroxide, that's really the one, the main ingredient or product that you shouldn't be using with retinol, because benzoyl peroxide can oxidize and deactivate retinol. So you don't want to use those two together. AHAs like glycolic acid, a lot of people see irritation with retinol already. And if you're using glycolic acid and retinol in the same routine, you're really putting yourself at risk to sensitization. And if you're doing this repeatedly over time, you're just going to sensitize your skin. You're not going to know what's going on, and you're going to be frustrated. And there's some evidence that I've read that that AHAs can potentially reduce retinol's efficacy. So you want to probably use those on alternate nights. Like if you're using retinol 3 times a week, use the glycolic acid treatment on nights when you're not using retinol. BHAs, similar to salicylic acid. I use a salicylic acid toner, the Paula's Choice BHA toner, at the very beginning of my routine. So if I'm using retinol, again, if I've gone and sat down and clicked play, like it's been an hour since I've used that salicylic acid, so I'm not going to experience any irritation. And then vitamin C. You also don't want to mix vitamin C, L-ascorbic acid or pure vitamin C with retinoids. There's an incompatibility in pH, and they can kind of destabilize each other. And so you want to apply vitamin C in the morning anyway, so you'll separate those by 12 hours or more. I have tons of recommendations for retinols on the blog, but just quickly, if you're looking for a beginner retinol, I love the Cocoa Kind beginner retinol gel. The Glow Recipe also just came out with I think it's called Blackberry Retinol. Really terrific, and reviews for both of those products are on my blog. A mid-strength retinol, the Ordinary's Retinol 0.2% emulsion serum is terrific, or the Remedy for dark spots nightly all-in-one treatment, really great. I believe it's 1% encapsulated retinol. I'm not sure, but you don't even know that the Remedy product for dark spots is a retinol product unless you really look at the ingredients, and it's kind of the star ingredient of that product. And then for an advanced retinol, I like the Paula's Choice Clinical Pro retinaldehyde dual retinoid treatment. If you're not getting tretinoin, prescription strength retinoid from your derm, I think this product's a really terrific way to go. Paula's Choice also has a 1% retinol. There's lots of 1% retinols on the market, and that comes as the last step, the penultimate step in your skincare routine. The step right before the last step, which is your moisturizer, right? Also, on non-retinol nights, you can use like I said, a glycolic acid or an acid treatment that's really helping to moderate discolorations, minimize dark spots in your complexion. Like the Lion Pose Unspotted, the Skincarma product of the year that I talked a lot about on the blog, on the podcast. I love using that treatment on my non-retinol nights. And then, like I said, you top it all off with a moisturizer. It's really important at night to use a heavier, more occlusive moisturizer. In the winter, you've got the heat running. In the summer, you've got air conditioning going, and you really need to do everything you can to prevent transepidermal water loss and keep your skin from drying out and dehydrating while you're asleep. The interesting thing, the dynamic here in your moisturizers, a lot of people like to use facial oils. And so I get asked that question, like, do I use a facial oil with a moisturizer? Do I use facial oil first, moisturizer first? What do I do? The answer is do whatever you want to do, whatever works best for your skin. The facial oil can go on first, particularly if it's lighter, because those oils will, be drawn into the skin. There isn't usually anything else in a facial oil besides the oils, the replenishing plant oils. So those get absorbed into the skin really well. If you're using a moisturizer that's rich in plant oils, it's also got other things in there that might be impeding that deeper penetration of the oils. You can apply, if your moisturizer is lighter, you can apply a facial oil over it. Or do what I do, particularly in winter. I love to drop a few drops of facial oil, to blend a few drops of facial oil into my moisturizer in the palms of my hand, rub them together, blend them together, and then massage that into my skin. And, your moisturizer contains, if it's a moisturizer for anything but very oily skin, it contains replenishing plant oils, the same plant oils that are in a facial oil. And so you're just kind of like amping it up a bit. You're kind of boosting the replenishing oil content of the moisturizer if you blend them together. And all of that combined seals everything in again. And you go to bed and you're going to wake up looking, much more refreshed and at least not dry and dehydrated. That's the worst. So that's it. I hope that helped. I hope I've answered everything. I tried to cover everything. I really put a lot of thought into it. Please feel welcome to DM me, reach out to me in my social channels with any specific questions. And of course, you can find product reviews for every single one of the products that I talked about on the blog. Thank you for listening to the Skincarma Pod. I really appreciate it. For more insights, real talk, and reviews of my favorite skincare products, go to the Skincarma blog at skincarma.com. And if you like what you heard today, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thank you, and I'll catch you later.